X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the bad boy of X-Men podcasting, Zack Jenkins. Hi, Adam.
Man, you know, can I start with a rant this week, Zach? Can I get something off my chest?
You know what? Normally, that's my purview, but I'd love to cede the floor to you in this occasion.
All right. So this past week, we did something new, right? Because we did a vote. We said, hey, patrons, we have two different ideas for this next episode, right?
Yes.
And one of them was IVX, and the other one was AVX, right?
A plus X, but yes.
A plus X, whatever. And in my brain, I went, gosh, I really hope these readers, these smart patrons of our program who love listening to our show, make the right choice and don't make me read IVX stories, right? And then that's not what they chose. They did. I mean, that is what they chose. They chose the AVX, A plus X, whatever we advertised it as. And then I read these stories, except for one of them, because I screwed that up. We'll reveal that.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
We're going to talk about that in a second. And I am nothing but aggravated. The A stands for aggravated.
The beauty, and I'm going to take 100% credit for it. One, on the vote, thank you to everyone from patreon.com/comicsxf who did vote on that. I gave them a 24-hour window because I put the poll up on like a Saturday or Friday, and I was like, shoot, I got to read these comics these weekends. So they got whoever gets in votes in the next day gets it. And I had to have a hard cutoff. Eventually did that. A plus X did win at the cutoff, but after the bell, a few people still voted, and IVX would have won out. In the way I tricked it, people. Here's the thing. These were stories that Zack wanted to talk about. Nothing about that means that these comics are good or interesting or anything except for I thought it would be funny to talk about that.
Well, you definitely picked some winners here, Zach. So,
we have nothing but things to talk about. And part of me is a little disappointed that you didn't read one of these stories. We'll get to why in a minute, folks.
Yes. Yes, we will.
Because I kind of want to know, like, I imagine by the end of this, you're going to go back and want to read this story.
Oh, I will.
It's the amount of wild twists and turns that takes confounds me to this day.
Where are we starting, Zach?
Well, we're starting with thanking the patrons who went over to ComicsXF Patreon. Patreon.com/ComicsXF. Reached deep down into the hearts and pocketbooks and threw a couple of coins into our coffers. And those folks, no one got to pick an episode this week, but really everyone did get to pick an episode this week because we extended a vote to them.
That's right.
We said, it's your choice, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And here in our Attitude Era, we're doing things for us, but we're doing things for you. But here's the thing, when we're doing things for you, we're going to rig it so that we're doing things for us. And by us, I mean, I'm rigging it for me.
This week is all Zach.
This week is my choice.
Zach's choice.
Zach's choice. I chose this lifestyle, and now I have to live with the consequences. And the beauty of it is if you don't want to live with the consequences, you got that pause button right there, folks. You can just hit it. It's okay. I stop. But Adam, he has to deal with this for the rest of the hour.
This first story is one that I distinctly remember from my youth as aggravating the hell out of me at the time, and I'm so excited to get into it. What is
really
this, Zach?
you had time to be aggravated between the dinosaur attacks? Grandpa?
Hey, get off my lawn.
This is the 30th anniversary special Avengers / X-Men Bloodties. It is a crossover event spearheaded by X-Men editor and at the time Avengers writer Bob Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Fabian Nissi. It covers Avengers 368 and 369, X-Men 26, West Coast Avengers, or I'm sorry, at this time Avengers West Coast 101, and Uncanny X-Men 307. We got Steve Epting on an issue. We got Andy Kubert on an issue. We got Fabian Nicieza writing. We got Roy the Boy Thomas, David Ross, Scotty Lobbs, John Romita Jr., and Jan Dursema.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Why do you hate this comic so much?
Oh, I hate this because it has Avengers in it.
Okay, listen. We gotta have a talk, guys. We gotta have a talk. Guys, we gotta have a talk. X-Men fans, I'm not saying that we need to stop making jokes about how the Avengers are cops, because it's very funny and I laugh every time. It's just, I know they are on top of the world right now, but it still feels to me, because I grew up in that era, and likely you did too, that it's like beating up on a littler kid, because it's like no one cared about the Avengers until at the earliest 2002, and that was more saying, well, the Avengers suck, but the Ultimates are great. And then really close to like 2005, maybe we were saying interesting. And then there was a movie, and it became very popular, and now it's an unescapable juggernaut. No matter how hard I try to get out of it, they keep making me think about Avengers things.
Yeah, I distinctly remember being 13 years old and not wanting Avengers in my X-Men. And not only was this Avengers in my X-Men, right? So it just come off Fatal Attractions.
Off Fatal Attraction.
Very exciting hologram fun time, and Wolverine bones out and adamantium out, and Cable getting beat up by Magneto getting turned into a vegetable, and all of a sudden Captain America is on the cover of X-Men 26, and I'm going, dear God, now I have to go buy these Avengers issues.
Okay, so let's talk. One, at this time, Captain America was written by the GOAT Mark Gruenwald. So his book was actually fun. We're past Gruny's prime.
Yeah.
This is late Gruny's. This is not like US agent style Gruny's where it's like really just always hitting. And it's not Cap Wolf where it's fun. We are past Cap Wolf at this point. I really think if you're describing the Gruenwald Captain America, you could argue that Cap Wolf is like the last peak, the last top of the mountain you get.
All I'm saying is that for $1.25 an issue, and Adam's, measly allowance, I was not going to go buy issues of Avengers and Avengers West Coast to fill in the gaps between X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. I was just going to read the X-Men parts. And thus, this was very disjointed and annoying to me. And I was eager to revisit it. Because... So,
Adam, wait, you're mad at this comic because when you were 13, you didn't read all of it? No. Incomplete?
I did read it, but I read it in the comic book store. I was that kid,
It's not a library.
It's not a library.
Adam, it's not a library.
Not a library.
You need to go back to that mom and pop comic book store and give them $1.95.
I gave them plenty of my money. It was fine. But
no excuse.
I'm not
Zero tolerance.
No spending money on these Avengers, folks. But I was eager to revisit it because I distinctly remember this story being really strange, and the story did not disappoint. It is very strange. And I actually thought that it started pretty well and then ends absolutely terribly. So let's get into it. What's it about, Zach?
Well, it's about the Avengers, and the Avengers at this time this is jacketed Avengers, which I think superheroes should wear jackets more often than not. I do think in this particular case, the Avengers were too much of friggin' nerds to pull it off. Because here's what you got. You got Black Knight, and I have been open about this.
Yeah.
I hate Black Knight, and I think Black Knight is a bad character. And I cannot believe they got zero charisma guy from Game of Thrones to be Black Knight, except for that's kind of perfect casting in my book.
He never got to actually Black Knight. He just stood there.
I mean, okay, it's still more Black Knight than I wanted.
That's true.
I don't care for the Black Knight. You got the Black Widow.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. She's fine.
Yep.
You got Captain America. Great. Love him.
Love Cap.
Crystal Maximoff. which is a weird choice for the Avengers.
Inhuman.
Giant man who does nothing in the story.
Hate that guy.
He's
big.
He's big.
Awful.
I mean, like, I'm not trying to be like no one should be defined by one story, but I also can't think of a second Hank Pym story, and that's telling. Hercules.
Sure.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Hercules was good when Greg Pak wrote him. And again, wild that he was in a movie like recently too. Like, folks, when we're saying they're scraping the bottom of the barrel of the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now,
they did kind of start by scraping the bottom, you know.
They scraped the top of the Avengers barrel off, which was already at the bottom of the Marvel barrel. Right. But now they're getting to the bottom of the Avengers barrel, and they're like, I guess we're doing a Wonder Man show. Wonder Man, not on this team. Nope. Cersei from the Eternals, the best Eternal.
Yeah.
Are easily the best Eternal.
She's great here.
And Vision.
Sure.
Vision also does nothing. The Avengers West Coast is, of course, Hawkeye. Again, wasn't good until 2011. It's fine. Julia Carpenter, Spider-Woman. The now would be the, let's see, 1, 2, third or fourth least popular Spider-Woman.
Sure.
I've got to think that J. Jonah Jameson's daughter is a less popular Spider-Woman.
Didn't even know she was. I didn't even know
J. Jonah
Jameson had a daughter. That's exciting.
Well, okay, it is not his biological daughter. Maddie Franklin is his adopted daughter for some time. She becomes Spider-Woman and she constantly changes costumes.
Oh, that seems interesting. So she's like,
have you read Alias? Pride? You've read Alias, right? The Jessica Jones?
Yeah, I think some of it. Yeah.
Do you remember the arc about the girl who runs away from her family because she's a mutant and actually she's not a mutant. She just hates her family.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The mutant growth hormone stuff. She was the girl that Bendis had as a mutant growth hormone farm. A plot he would repeat.
He does like to use that. Yes.
Who else is on this? Anyways, this is Julia Carpenter. She's the one that had Spider-Man's black suit. And then they decided actually Spider-Man should have it. Oh, the one that was on Freedom Force for a little bit. X-Men fans. The ones X-Men fans would know.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Her.
Yep.
War Machine's here from TV's Secret Invasion. I haven't watched it. I don't know. I think he's in that. Watching it. I mean, I'm going to watch it as much as I watch any MCU TV show now. U.S. Agent is here. Johnny Walker.
Yep.
John Walker. Listen, there's folks who like, actually, John Walker's a hero. And I beg you to read any comic with John Walker in it. Because he's the worst in every comic he's in, and that's why he's fun to read. And it's also Scarlet Witch.
Yes, and Quicksilver is also bouncing around here.
Quicksilver at the time is on
X Factor, sort of.
I don't know if he had left by now or not, because he kind of floats around here and X-Men for a little bit between. Like he doesn't have a home right now.
Yeah. So for those of you clocking that was almost 2 minutes of just sheer Avengers characters that I'm subjected to as part of this X-Men story. Boo. Things are not good in Genosha.
Wait, hold on. News alert. Hold on. Trish Tilby here. Things are not good in Genosha. Also, dog butt man.
But things are really bad in Genosha.
Things are the average level of bad for Genosha.
Yeah, but there's an all-out civil war between mutates and humans, and Trish Tilby is caught up in the crossfire because Fabian Cortez has abducted Luna,
Quicksilver and Crystal. Quicksilver and Crystal's child. The one from Daredevil, the one from Anna Cinti's Daredevil.
Yes.
No one thinks about how that plot is a major part of the back half of Anna Cinti's Daredevil.
It really is. And so he's done this ostensibly because he wants Magneto to, well, hold on. It is revealed later on that the whole reason Cortez is doing this is to win the Upstarts contest, which I think is hilarious.
Very funny. Ostensibly,
he's the Upstarts contest. He's doing it because he is, following in the teachings of Magneto or whatever. And,
he's using whatever. Magneto and as a symbol of mutant liberation to rile up the upstarts into violent overthrow of the Genoshan magistrates and the humans. Hey, here's the thing. The human government of Genosha is still fully in charge at this point. So I feel like the mutates, while being manipulated by Fabian Cortez and being pushed to take some overly violent and unreasonable actions, they are coming off as way more sympathetic than the former slave owners.
I would like to get into that.
I
But
also do think that this comic kind of knows that. Like, I
the
don't think Bob
politics-
Harris does. I think the
Yes.
rest of the writers do.
the politics of this arc is bananas. And I want to get into that. But before we do, we should just note that this thing goes completely off the rails because for the latter half of the story, Exodus just decides to pop down, reveal that Magneto is a vegetable, and that he's taking over for Magneto. And he basically like puts Genosha into a contracting bubble that's going to kill everybody. And then he basically just like beats the hell out of every single Avenger and X-Men and Eternal and whoever else is there until I forget how they defeat him. They distract him or something.
Did something.
And they save the baby and
Black Knight stabs him with his psychic sword and something.
Black Knight.
I'll be honest, guys. This story is about X-Men things, and the X-Men are present, but they are not the. It's like watching an Indiana Jones movie. You know that like online thing where they're like, actually, if Indiana Jones would have done nothing, then the whole movie would have happened. And I disagree with that, but I just want to make that argument right here but for Avengers X-Men Bloodlines. If the X-Men don't do anything, it's like kind of the thing resolves itself. What's good about this, the Avengers right now have a charter with the UN. They are working for the UN. And the UN is looking over at Genosha and saying, we don't want to get in the middle of that. That sounds bad, actually. And they tell the Avengers they are not allowed to do anything. The Avengers, because most of the time, and this is just the only annoying discourse I'm going to do here, most of the time, the Avengers, when they work for the government, are actually in a plot where they realize very quickly the government is a broken and flawed system, and we can't just be beholden to politicians to make the right decisions about, these people. There's other incentives going on, and that's exactly what happens with the Avengers. They say, screw you, except for US Agent, who is happily hanging out with Peter Henry Gyrick.
However, US Agent, Professor X, and Gyrick actually do liberate a mutate concentration camp within Genosha. So points to them.
Listen, points to them.
Let's get into the politics of this for a second, though, because one of the
Do
things
we have to? Because it's a Bob Harris comic, and he's
No,
not
but-
known for being good.
This is worth noting, though, is that it is, and the reason I want to bring this up is because it's literally name checked in the Avengers West Coast thing, is that Blood Ties, for all of its goofy Fabian Cortez stuff, is actually making a pretty strident political point that the UN, which ostensibly was created in many large parts to stop future holocausts from happening. This story is coming out in the midst of the Bosnian War and Bosnian genocide. And that conflict is name checked in that particular issue. So not only is it being alluded to in the first few issues, it is actually being put into the story as a comparison point. And the Avengers are saying, your body, your governing body is a sham because you're not willing to actually do what you're set up to do. And we are going to do it for you, even if when we get there, we are just as helpless as anybody else. So all of that, I think, is interesting. I do think that what you said about the way that the writers tackle the resistance movement as being just as bad as what the humans are doing.
Both sizism does throw all that off for me.
Really strange. Really strange the way that's
it's
tackled.
Just they were enslaved, and then the best you could do was have them not be slaves, but still subservient under the rule of law to their oppressors. I can appreciate why that would not be a situation where the Genoshan mutates would feel comfortable and feel like they have options besides the use of force. I am not advocating for blowing up school children. Just those two thoughts can live in parallel.
Yeah, there's some very strange like new villain concepts involved here too, right? Like there's
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
Unforgiven. So
Couldn't
stupid.
even remember their name. They show up. Are they like Bob Harris tried to get them over, and the rest of the writers were like, "We're not Bob. This is dumb.
Yeah,
This is dumb. We don't have room for this."
no, there's another set of like Cortez villains too. Like there's the Unforgiven, and then there's another set of like
The
evil
Magistrate
mutant-
Elite.
Yeah, oh, that's what it was. The Magistrate Elite. It's like just no, we don't need any of this. Did I love, even though it was dumb as heck, the JRJR Exodus versus Cerise fighting in the sky? Yeah, I love it. There's a couple of like turn the comic sideways moments in that issue that are just fun.
Because here's what's good about this. The art is killer all throughout this. It's just one of my biggest criticisms about the current line of X-Men is that I do not think there is enough investment in all-star talent when it comes to art. I think they started that way, and I think there are standout artists. I think Josh Cassara, one of my favorites. I've got multiple pieces of his work on my wall. I think he's great, but I don't think they aren't putting A-list talent on these books in the way they were in the 90s or even the way they were 5 years ago. Sure. I don't think that talent's being developed at Marvel right now. I think they're in a gap between, where their next big new things are going to be. But you look at a book like this or a series like this, Steve Epting, Andy Kubert, JR. I mean, David Ross.
The Avengers West Coast issue and the final issue of the Avengers, they don't look that great.
But those it's David Ross and Jan Duursema, and I just don't think Duursema is the right fit, frankly, for this.
Yeah,
I think David Ross is he's a perfectly fine artist.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think the thing starts really strong, art wise, writing wise. It devolves into a punch 'em up that kind of walks away from the themes and the ideas that it was trying to discuss in the first 3 issues.
And it's so much Avengers stuff. Like the X-Men stuff is like, well, what is the legacy, Magneto? Or I guess Quicksilver talking to Magneto's granddaughter that we have created. I'm Charles Xavier right now. Oh, what is the legacy that we have given this green and pleasant land? And it's like, Charles, I don't care anymore. You've lost me, man. You spent a while talking about Exodus being who inherits the title of Magneto's successor? Is it Fabian Cortez? Is it Exodus? Is it Quicksilver? Scarlet Witch, very little to do. It's story about the legacy of Magneto. She's around.
Well, the idea that the story is called Bloodties, and yet the actual... Well, we should just mention that probably the reason it's called that is because of Image Comics and Rob Liefeld. Like, there's no doubt in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
That is a marketing push.
Isn't it?
That is 100% a marketing push to try and compete with the Image books, right? But
because when would have the first Image book launched?
92.
Okay, so by 93. Wasn't Youngblood #1 in 93?
Youngblood.
No, it was 92 because 92. Image just did a 30-year thing last year. You're right.
Yeah, it was April.
It was 92.
I just looked at it.
You would know. So yeah, we are deep in Image speculator boom now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, calling it Bloodties.
Yeah,
DC. They started from the title and worked backwards. That's what Bob Harris did.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because he's the editor and he's front of it. Hey guys, by the way, there's a lot of complaints about the Bill Jemas, Joe Quesada kind of times at Marvel. Probably one of the smartest and most reasonable things they did was saying, hey, you can't hire Marvel employees to write these books. You can't just hire your friend to do this. Bob, you can't be writing Avengers. You are a head editor. What are you doing, Bob?
What are you doing, Bob, is a great question for the career of Bob.
There is nothing about Bob Harris's career that I would not be like, what are you doing, Bob?
What are you doing, Bob?
Bob, what are you doing?
All right, we've probably talked about this way too long. What do you say we rank it, Zach?
Oh, that's the thing we do on this podcast, Adam. We rank things on a big old list of
Super
all
big.
the X-Men stories from best to worst. There are 789 X-Men stories on that road to 800.
Holy cow.
With the best X-Men story being the House of X, the Powers of 10. Adam, can I tell you that legitimately the other day I was thinking about how someone at some point read House of X, Powers of 10 and thought, man, this is a really stirring tribute to libertarianism.
Oh my God. I just knocked myself in the head for
I
listeners
thought
who
about
didn't
that
see
the
it.
other day and it made me laugh so hard.
I remember that. And
I told myself I need to bring that up to Adam on the podcast. I want him to hear it. And luckily, we talk about House of X Powers 10 every week. Folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, the pandemic impacted all of us in interesting ways.
Sure
Number
did.
100 is Wolverine 48 to 50, the Shiva scenario. Number 200 is All New Wolverine, Enemy of the State 2. Number 300 is Generations Phoenix and Jean Grey. Number 400 is The Return of the Warpies from Excalibur. Number 500 is the Jim Lee Mojo arc of X-Men Volume 2. That also has the Maverick Files in it. Number 600 is Exiles 8 to 10. That's the Gladiator arc. Number 7 is Marvel Mangaverse X-Men. And number 789 is the worst X-Men story ever, 2099 Word of Tomorrow, starring Miguel O'Hara from the Spider-Man movie everyone likes.
Yeah, I saw it. I liked it a lot.
It was a good Spider-Man movie.
Very good.
This is my second favorite Spider-Man movie to feature my friends Gwen and Miles.
All the way down at 528 is Cable 26 and 28, which is kind of a sequel to this story because it involves Philip. What's Philip's last name? Rambeau?
Philip Monroe and Moreau and
Jesse
Jenny
Ransom.
Ransom.
Yeah. I don't know.
The Cable arc's better because it's got that issue that's a countdown.
I think
that issue that's a
better.
countdown is better than everything else in this.
Yeah. So working my way down. I think Enemy of the State is better than this at 541.
Enemy of the State's better than this. Is this better than the Nick Spencer Ultimate Comics X-Men?
No, I think that was better. What do you think?
I mean, I think you're right. I think you are right here. This is better than 573 Life and Times of Lucas Bishop.
Yes, it is. I also think this is better than X Factor Judgment War at 564.
This is not better than Astonishing X-Men 1 through 6 Life of X, an ambitious attempt to do a thing that doesn't really work and is a comic that says, hey, X-Men isn't really working while still making X-Men not work.
Yeah.
But I think that's better than this.
Yeah. What do you think? Better or worse than the 96 to 100 London Hellfire Club arc of Excalibur?
I'm going to say better, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do a history lesson for you.
Oh, I like
Do you remember back in the day when I would do the Xavier Files where I would write long things about different X-Men characters?
Yeah, absolutely.
For a while, right when it started, a lot of people started asking me, oh, are you going to do like the thing where you explain how to kill these people from Excalibur 100? I was like, no, that's stupid. That's freaking stupid, people. I know that's dumb. So thank you for that. You get Bloodties ahead of you. That's what you get for that. It's our new 563.
Okay. Well, folks.
That was the comic that Adam was most looking forward to talking about.
Well, let's get into this next one, which I really hate.
Do you, Adam? That's such a divisive word. I don't think you should use that word. I think what you really need to do is bring people together and not tear them apart. And can I get real close to the mic here?
Yeah, let's have a moment.
Let's have a moment here, folks. It's just, when I call myself the bad boy of X-Men podcasting, I feel like there's some people out there that are uncomfortable with that moniker. I feel like some of you, that is a sign that, you know what? This is something new. This is something different. This is something raw and unique. And while I'm trying to express the raw energy that I provide when I'm rocking the mic, there's some people that they have built-in prejudices, and we need to be respectful of them. And you know what? I don't want that divide between the good boys and the bad boys of X-Men podcasting. I think we need to find a place where we can all just meet a middle ground. And I'm going to propose a new thing. Instead of calling me the bad boy of X-Men podcasting, how about just Zack?
Jesus, Zack.
How about just Zack?
Zack,
Adam, we're all the same.
Zack.
We all bleed red, Adam.
Zach.
Yes, that's what I asked you to call me. Thank you.
That was amazing. Congratulations. I will drop your Emmy off later.
Thank you
or whatever
so
the
much.
podcast equivalent of that is.
I've been thinking so much about this, and I know our listeners, they want to hear two cis straight white guys talk about this comic so much and that ending. And I think we can all agree that Uncanny Avengers 1-5 by Rick Remender with John Cassaday on 4 issues and Oliver Coipel on the 5th one has some issues.
It sure does, folks.
5 issues, in fact. It's 1-5. That's the number of issues it has.
Yeah. Gee golly, where to start? How about it's terrible?
Can we start with the fact that it opens up with like a schlocky horror movie scene?
Yeah.
Like, it's shock horror is the first issue, which is so dumb. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. But the first issue opens with who we later find out is the Red Skull, and not the Red Skull that's been around for a while, because his Nazi status was too ambiguous for this writer. Start out with actual, just like unfroze himself from 1945 Red Skull. Opening up Avalanche's head and skull and taking out part of his brain so that he causes people to dislike mutants.
He replaces it with a little robot thingy, and then Avalanche goes out and causes havoc so that people hate mutants.
So stupid.
It's very Silver Age, and it's fine.
It's a mix of like a Silver Age plot, but with gross out aesthetics. Yeah. And I'm not against, like, listen, I got a picture of a guy's entire skeletal system being removed from him behind me. Like, I'm not against body horror and like gory things. But like, this is what you want as the opening image of your X-Men and Avengers book? Okay, Rick, let's go, buddy.
Rick is not known for subtlety. And
Rick Remender is not a subtle person.
No, he's not. And if you ever wanted to learn that racism is bad, oh boy, this is the comic book for you. Because, well, folks, we know that. I don't need Rick Remender to tell me that. But he is about to bash it over your head as many times as he possibly can over the course of these 5 issues. And he's going to do it. He's going to try to do a nice little, a Horseman of Apocalypse redux, except he's going to do it with Red Skull and a team of characters that are absolutely awful named the S-Men.
Okay, I like Mies. I've said this before. The Turtle Man.
The S-Men suck.
The S-Men kind of suck. I like Mies because he's a big old turtle man.
Sure.
I think that's great. I think there should be big old turtle men. Like, my feelings on him begin and end with, I think John Cassaday did a good job drawing him.
Here's the thing, though, about these issues. Okay, let's get into the Cassaday of it all, because we've reevaluated Astonishing recently, and when you read Astonishing, the art is astonishing. And that's a huge part of why that book has aged, the way it has, and people still keep it in high esteem, even if the writing, maybe hasn't aged as well, right? This is not Cassaday firing on all cylinders. I'm sorry.
It's not, but I do like this Turtle Man.
He clearly does not have as much time as he did with the much delayed, often delayed Astonishing X-Men. And this art does not look as good. The way in which things are framed, the characters and their faces are very bland. Everybody kind of looks like they're bored a lot of the time. Wolverine looks much younger for some reason. It's a very odd way of drawing Wolverine throughout this. And it's just not up to his normal snuff. Coipel comes in and kills the issue that he's in on because he's a modern master. But it's just not visually interesting. I think the thing that I constantly take away from this is just the absolute audacity of continuing to violate Professor X's corpse in as many ways as possible. Is
at a certain point, it's really funny.
It's
like, I'm
funny.
sorry. The end of issue 1 where Red Skull is holding up Charles Xavier's brain from his now excavated skull. That is hilarious. I don't 100% know if that's what you're supposed to feel in that moment, because I don't get the feeling that this is a jokey joke book. but it is a really funny page. Like, oh, it's horrible that happened to a fictional character. And if any of these people were real, this would be one of the most horrific things to ever happen in the world. However, it's a really funny page. Like, I'm sorry, this plot's so dumb. Red Skull, here's the plot for people who have not read Uncanny Avengers. Red Skull grafts Professor X's brain into his own because that's where his telekinetic powers are stored.
Apparently, even though he's dead.
The powers are stored in the brain.
Right.
Forget everything else. It's all stored in the brain.
Dead brain. Just gonna slap
Captain America
dead brain in your skull.
Just slap some dead brain in there. You know, you have to remove part of your other. Listen, this is based on the logic that Rick Remender does set up in his time. He has to remove part of his brain to put that brain in there because your skull's only so. Even if you got a red skull, it's only so big. You can only fit so much brain in there.
He lobotomizes himself. And you
put an Xavier brain in. And then, but because that's where all of his life is, now Xavier's in your brain. And then when an Axis hits, you can become the White Skull and be the hero. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. At the same time, Captain America is like, shoot, you know what? Probably haven't helped out the X-Men enough, which is fair. And it's good that Captain America's like, I should have done that. Should have helped out people more. Let's help out people. Captain America's doing his part. He says, I'm going to get Alex Summers to lead my team. And boy, that's mistake number one. Alex Summers should not be leading teams.
No, have we learned nothing from X Factor? Have we learned nothing from Mutant X? Like, come on. This is not a good decision.
He's only doing it because it's like, well, this is Cyclops' brother, and Cyclops is Mutant Hitler now. He's not Mutant Hitler yet. But
this is post AVX. Cyclops is
post
still in
AVX.
prison.
And Wolverine's like, yeah, well, you know what? It doesn't matter that there's other mutants back because you killed the one mutant who mattered, Charles Xavier. Wolverine's written like a jerk in this, which is kind of annoying because I don't dislike the Wolverine that meant her rights in Uncanny X-Force, but I don't like him here.
He's mourning Xavier in a way that doesn't seem to make sense for the character.
Also, Thor is just hanging out.
Sure.
Thor's here just hanging out.
Yep.
Love that. Love that for Thor.
Rogue and Scarlet Witch hate each other.
Well, okay. We'll get into that in a second. I just want to say Thor, constant ally to the mutants, always been there for him.
Yep.
Captain America's like, we haven't done enough to help the mutants. He's like, who's we're talking about? I've been their best friend for a while. I gave one of them a hammer once.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Captain. Yeah, you mentioned Scarlet Witch. There's no two ways around it. Scarlet Witch, if you didn't blame her for M-Day previously, you're going to not feel bad about blaming her based on her actions in this comic, where she just acts like a real jerk and very insensitive to the hundreds of thousands of lives that she ruined by her actions, even if she was not directly involved. And really, it's kind of more of her brother's fault.
Yeah.
She has no sympathy for the situation.
Takes no responsibility and has no sympathy, and it's not great.
And Rogue has a short fuse.
Sure.
Which is fair. Rogue, you're not supposed to root for all of Rogue's actions in this. She comes out of this smelling like daisies. Like, she looks the best. The one thing she does that you could be like, oh, Rogue, that wasn't the most tactful thing you could do, is eventually in the mansion, in Avengers Mansion, aka the house that they invited her to live in, she puts up a picture of Charles Xavier instead of the original Avengers, and Wasp gets mad.
Yes. Even though Captain
Rogue's
America,
like, I don't care.
I think Cap asked her to do it.
Cap was like, oh yeah, you can put up a picture. And then he's like, oh, Jan's gonna be, hey Rogue, could you put up your stuff over there? So everyone kind of sucks in this. Wonder Man's here, and I hate him so much. And he barely does anything except for his brother shows up, and Rogue kills him by doing one punch like normal people do. Yep. Sunfire's here. Cool, whatever. The rest of the plot, before we get to the speech, because I only have one thing to say about the speech, because it's been done to death by people who are smarter than me and more well-equipped to handle it. But before that, it's just the Red Skull is making everyone hate mutants and act violently in the Kingsman way.
Yeah. And
then they have to stop him, and more he just escapes at the end. It's dumb, and also is another example of comics being like, prejudice is actually caused by lobotomized brains of good people being put into
Right.
Nazis.
And we can totally solve every crisis with singing Ebony and Ivory, right? Because if we get the
Jeez.
Avengers and we get the X-Men together, all of a sudden we will have harmony across the globe. And nowhere is this more tone deaf in what Zack than in what Zack was making fun of before. And if you have not read Uncanny Avengers #5, it does contain Alex giving an infamous written speech about how he doesn't want to be called the M word anymore. Clock that.
It represents everything that he hates.
Yes. And that he would like to just be known by his first name, Alex.
Someone asks him, what should we call you then? And he says, how about Alex?
Now, this was so controversial at the time that Bendis then did his own response to it in All New X-Men Out of the Mouth of Kitty Pryde.
In several good pages of comics.
An amazing
pages
rebuttal.
that are great and fit the character well. And I'm not saying, I want to be very clear. I do not think that we need to take every word that every character says in every comic as the literal mouthpiece of the creator. I think that is at best, a stupid way to analyze media. So in general, I would not say, yes, this is Rick Remender saying his thoughts through Havoc. In general, I wouldn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
In this one specific case, I would say that when there were several articles written about this and a bunch of people I remember, and I'm blanking on the name, but there was a great piece on Comics Alliance about this at the time. In Rick Remender's response, and I'm just going to quote this tweet from March 28th at 9:15 a.m., 2013. Heads up. If Havoc's position in UA #5 really upsets you, it's time to drown yourself in hobo piss. Seriously, do it. It's the only solution.
Real tactful.
I keep thinking of Rick Remender telling people to drown themselves in hobo piss so much.
There's just so much going on.
It's terrible. It's terrible, but what an image to be putting out into the world. And what a response. This is why comics creators should never tweet. This is why nobody should tweet, because then you tell people to drown themselves in hobo piss.
Yeah, many of them don't anymore for better reasons. But
it's so funny. I'm sorry. In retrospect, this situation is
ridiculous.
Insane.
As is the amped up virtue signaling of this particular arc. And we've both gone on record and saying that there are later arcs of this that we really enjoy, especially when Acuna comes on board.
I've read stuff that I like, yeah.
But let me tell you, this first arc, it ain't it. It is trash, and I hate it.
This was the flagship book for Marvel when it started, and there's a reason we all went so what's Hickman doing over here with the Avengers now? And then this book stops being important, and that book has a cinematic universe made about it. Yeah,
it's a real whiff. So this is definitely worse than what we started with Bloodties.
Where's Axis on the list?
Oh yeah, great.
I mean, we have to answer that key question. Okay, at 754 is Axis on the list. Is this better or worse than Axis? I would like to do a pro-con.
Please.
Pro. Mm-hmm. Regardless of Cassidy not hitting on all cylinders, this looks better than Axis.
It does look better than Axis. Especially
it also has, while it's dumb,
mm-hmm.
has a tight, coherent plot that follows from issue to issue.
It is coherent. Yes.
Not good. But remember, we're comparing this to Axis. So these are the pros cons we're going at. Those are two easy wins in that corner.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is kind of on the bad side of that. Axis, on the other hand, incredibly dumb, pretty ugly, and finds a way to somehow unsatisfyingly wrap up this plot.
All right, so we're saying this is better than Axis.
I don't know. I'm saying that I'm conflicted.
Well, as I look up the list a little bit as to what's just above Axis, at 724 we have X Women by Milo Manara.
I'd rather read X-Women than this.
I mean,
come on. Let's be real. Which have I read more? This or X-Women? It's this.
yeah,
I've read this thing like 7 times.
yeah. But I
keep thinking about it.
We are in the right part of the list. I'm also looking at 732, which is Legion.
The Peter Milligan one,
which is really bad. But I think this might be just a pinch better than that, especially because of the art. Is this better than at 731 Magneto Rex?
I don't remember Magneto Rex. Which one's Magneto Rex? That's not a good sign either way.
How about X-Men Liberators at 728? That was pretty bad.
Magneto Rex is the one with Zealot. No, Magneto Rex is better.
Okay, so this is our new 732.
Yeah, let's make it 732. And here's the thing, guys. I could look below Axis, but right below Axis is Eve of Destruction, and then it's Wolverine and the X-Men Volume 2, number 1, and then it's Wild Thing, number 4. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is a better story than all of those.
Yeah, but it's still garbage.
Anyway, speaking of reading things, Adam, you didn't.
Well, I did read what I thought was what I was supposed to read, and apparently, as we began to get ready for this episode, I realized, nope, totally read the wrong thing. I read a New Avengers Volume 2 arc involving the New Avengers versus the Dark Avengers, and just assumed that because there was a Wolverine and Gorgon fight in it, that I was reading the right thing. And so, Zack,
what was the part that tipped you off? The part where I said, yeah, here's what I told you. We're reading New Avengers, The Collective, and then that series is not called The Collective.
Here's where
did that not tip you off a little bit?
Here's where I got tripped up, is because when I read which issues it was, I ended up in the wrong volume on Marvel Unlimited, and I went, well, okay, this seems a little strange, but I'll just keep going with it. Zack told me I would realize why we picked this when I read it. I did
tell you it was going to take you're not going to understand what I'm talking about until we get near the end.
And I was like, why am I reading this? So, Zack, I turn the show over to you. Please tell us all about New Avengers Volume 1, The Collective.
Yeah, this is New Avengers 16 through 20, written by friend of the show, Brian Michael Bendis, with 16 illustrated by Steve McNiven. Mike Deodato does the rest. And Adam, you remember the House of M?
Yes.
Do you remember when all the mutants lost their powers, right? Do you remember the big thing at the end of that where they said, oh, and by the way, where'd all that power go to? Because energy cannot be created or destroyed, which gotta keep telling people that's not how any of this works.
No, but yes, I do remember that concept.
You can't have Cyclops and be like, yeah, energy can't be created or destroyed. And it's like, Cyclops.
Punch dimension.
Cyclops, what are you doing?
He's just opening his eyes to the punch dimension.
Listen, you you're talking to somebody who understands the punch dimension and was ecstatic when Al Ewing put it in Ultimates. I want to say it was Ultimates Squared, actually.
I'm not a punch dimension believer, by the way.
I have accepted. Here's my truth about continuity. 1, continuity isn't what happens. Continuity is what you remember.
Sure.
And I remember the punch dimension. I will never forget the punch dimension.
All right. So
people argue about continuity. You know, when we say continuity, what a lot in canon, what we normally what that normally refers to is a reference to the establishment of the biblical canon that happened 600 some years after Christianity was founded. So we got some time to establish canon, people.
Sure.
It's not just everything that we've written. We can be flexible about this. Anyway, and that's important because this story's relationship to canon is loose.
I'm so excited to hear about this.
I can't wait. So, energy created or destroyed, right? Well, it all went somewhere. You know where all that energy went. Adam, say it with me. It went into
the sun.
No, it didn't. It went into Vulcan, and it also woke him up. And it also went into Counter Earth and started a new onslaught. And then I think there was a third thing that I'm forgetting about that they did with that new energy. Something with the Phoenix Force at some point. Wasn't it
X-Men the End?
No, that was a different thing.
That was a different
thing.
Anyway.
But the other thing that it did is it did a U-turn and came back to Earth, and it was absorbed by a gentleman, a post office worker by the name of Michael Pointer. He was in Alaska.
Here we go.
he turns into a big old red guy who's just walking around filled with energy. He's walking across the country. And you know what? They need a premier superhero team to stop them. Maria Hill calls them in. She calls in Alpha Flight.
Okay.
Do you remember when Brian was on our program recently and he talked about how early in his career, sometimes he would break toys and he didn't realize until later. It's like, actually, when you break toys, that's not always the best thing to do. And like, at minimum, you upset people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So anyway, Brian Michael Bendis breaks Alpha Flight in like a page, like off panel, murders all of Alpha Flight.
Wow. Just dead. They're dead.
Yeah, they died to get over Michael Pointer, the Collective.
Okay.
Who has, he doesn't know this yet, but I'll spoil it. You know how all the energy of all the mutants that were depowered went up into space and then came back down into him?
He has all the powers?
He has all the powers. He doesn't.
Wow.
In what I think is actually a pretty funny move in this story. He doesn't know that.
Okay. Yeah.
Like at a certain point, one of the new Avengers asks him, why is he walking?
Mm-hmm.
Or he doesn't ask that. They throw him and they realize that he was only walking because he didn't know he could fly yet.
Oh.
And they're like, and now he's coming faster. Thank you. Listen, Bendis is kind of funny sometimes. The new Avengers do some policing in Detroit, and I'm not going to unpack that because I don't want to. They just stand on street corners.
Okay.
And just like hang out. And it's a cool page for Luke Cage, and I'm not unpacking the politics of that. However, they get called away to do some stuff. And they're like, actually, you know who could help us? Not an Avenger, but should be Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, fresh off of the House of M series, where they were like, actually, you could be a great superhero, where she was like the biggest deal.
Yeah.
She goes, tries to stop him. Sentry tries to stop him. Iron Man tries to stop him. No one can stop this guy. Carol gets her binary powers back for a hot second. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. Eventually, they realize something, that this guy can control metal, which is what makes them realize he has all of the mutant powers. Okay. Also, he tries to destroy Cleveland, which normally I'd be upset about, but Brian Michael Bendis is a fellow Ohioan, so I'm giving him a pass. I'm giving him a pass for having Cleveland be the joke because I made Cleveland jokes last week.
Yeah, I was going to say, you trash talked Cleveland last episode, so
I'm allowed. I'm from spirits. Ohio. I'm not from Cleveland, but that's fine. Anyway, everyone fights. And then they realize, wait, this is all of the mutant energy. This is all of the mutants. So, Adam, when you were flipping through the wiki and you were like, whoa, all these characters appear? Yeah, it's because they all appear on this page here on a big old computer screen.
Look at that.
And then
Love
their
when
names
there's a
show
big
up.
Screen with all little floating heads.
Oh,
Artists
yeah, you know.
too.
Abyss, Angel Dust, Artie, Beak, Black Tom, Blob, Conquistador, Chamber, Fatale, Hack, Harpoon, Fantasia, Quicksilver.
You're not going to read them all, are you? Because that's a lot of names.
Oh, no, I'm not even close. But Kiwi Black does get mentioned, and I think that's funny.
That is funny.
Yeah, Spider-Man's like, oh, wait, now I know who this guy is, or what this guy is. Talks about all the mutants that are dead and that don't have their powers. They have to keep fighting him. And again, this is a Bendis comic from the mid-2000s, so it's a little decompressed. It's a lot of fighting, a lot of good witty dialogue, great art, honestly. Nick McNiven first, and then Deodato. Like, people will poo-poo on Deodato these days. I think his stuff works pretty well.
Deodato is terrible.
I think his stuff works pretty good here.
He's awful. He draws boobs like they're wrapped up in saran wrap, and it's like 2 cantaloupes in there.
Okay, but let him who is without sin cast the first stone on that one.
Are you saying that I draw them like that?
I am not saying, Adam, I don't know how to explain this. I have not looked at your art in that way.
Here's what I'm going to say is that Deodato is notorious for a certain kind of depiction of human bodies that is pretty ridiculous. Not a fan. Just going to say that.
I'm going to say that. I'd say when you do end up flipping through this,
you'll
ugly. Agree with me. You'll agree with me that he looks a lot better in this than he does in, say, 2012.
Okay. The arc I read had Mike Deodato art, and I hated it.
Yeah, he changes his styles pretty significally between the 2 times.
All right, maybe I gotta go back
and it might come down to inking and things like that. I don't know if he's doing traditional stuff right now, because I know he's moved to digital.
Mike Deodato's Squirrel Girl is a war crime.
Oh my gosh, you read the Squirrel Girl part! Yeah, that's a notoriously
Right.
bad looking.
We
issue.
are going
Anyway,
long here. Well, you gotta wrap this up. Tell me who this collective guy is.
he's Michael Pointer. He ends up in Genosha.
Okay, ends up in Genosha.
Genosha, post House of M Genosha. Magneto's there. He's writing a letter for reasons, and oh no, all of the power that was in him goes into Magneto. So Magneto's a little repowered, but actually, no, it's not Magneto, because one of the mutants in the mutant energy, one of the mutants really wanted to get back to Magneto, and do you know who that mutant was, buddy?
Please say Joseph.
Nope. It's Zorn, baby. This is a Zorn story, actually. This is actually a Zorn story.
What?
This is a Zorn one, baby. Surprise, it's Zorn.
So it's a Zornito.
It's a Zornito story, and it's a different Zornito because, as we all know, Zorn from Planet X was originally, in Grant Morrison's conception, Magneto dressed as a guy named Zorn.
Right.
This is a silly plot in general, but very understandable. Zorn then becomes a guy named Zorn, dressed as Magneto, dressed as himself, who has an identical twin brother. So we know why he's dressed like himself.
Yes. So now
This posits that actually that Zorn, dead, depowered, all of his energy has gone back into Magneto to fight the Avengers and remind them of what they did when they depowered all of the mutants, get revenge. This Zorn has the power to create all of the zombies of Genosha.
oh my. So this is a
They
Necrosha
fight.
situation all of a sudden.
We got a Zorn Necrosha situation going on here.
Wow.
Yes. We got a Necrosha situation. Quake shows up. You know Daisy Johnson from
Yep.
Secret War without the
Yep.
S.
Yep.
She shows up because she's a Nick Fury loyalist and something Maria Hill something.
Sure.
Shield plot of the time. And she, the character from Marvel's Agents of Shield, the
Yep.
show where Coulson lives.
I'm familiar.
She uses her Quake powers to shake Zorn out of Magneto. And then do you know what happens?
I didn't read this.
Oh, Sentry throws the collective energies of all the mutants depowered in Genosha, or depowered on M-Day, into the sun.
Okay. I knew the sun had to be involved somehow. That's just classic.
I mean, that's just what the Sentry does. He throws things into the sun.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It's
just
his
classic
one
comics.
solution. It's a good solution, too. Claremont, we gave him a lot of crap in that episode. Claremont was kind of right.
You throw
The
stuff
sun's
in,
a great solution.
if I could throw stuff into the sun, I would, that seems like great. So I am anticipating that I probably would have enjoyed this, but
I think you would have enjoyed the twists and turns when you didn't know there was going to be a splash page where Magneto's wailing in the air and screaming Zord out of nowhere.
that does sound pretty great.
I think you would have thrown the thing down and say, son of a gun, Zack, I didn't know where you were going with this. I saw the Alpha Flight stuff. I knew Wolverine was in it. I knew there was like some mutant energy. Maybe we were talking about that. No, bud, it was all of that. Also, I think Magneto gets sent to prison or something.
Great.
I don't care. Oh, no.
Cool.
They try and send him to prison, and then a thing blows up and he escapes. It's
Okay.
a weird plot, man. I don't know what Brian was doing with this one, but it's very funny to me.
Sounds amusing.
It looks nice.
Not a fan
This
of
is
that
like- this is-
Diodato art, but I bet it would still be enjoyable.
I know exactly the Diodato art you're thinking of. This is better than that.
Okay. All right. And you got some
This is
McNiven
just-
in there.
It's a weird story, man. I don't know.
So
how
was
to
the one
explain
I
it.
read. The one I read was very bizarre. So
What you read was a Fear Itself tie-in
mhm.
mixed with part of a Norman Osborn story.
Yeah. And Norman Osborn looked like Tommy Lee Jones in every issue. It was really
Okay,
weird.
but that is Diodato's problem.
It was
That
very
one's
strange.
a Diodato thing.
He did it quite well. It just was a very odd choice. I'm going to let you rank this because I don't know where to put it.
That's a great thing.
You get a gimme here. No,
I get a gimme. And people, we're
no
not
pushback?
planning on messing with our format like this all the time, just when Adam forgot about the comic. This has happened before. Hey, folks, here's a secret. If we've ever messed with the format before, there's like a 50% chance somebody screwed up on the reading order. And normally we get by with it because we can do a shorthand between like X-Men stuff and be like, yeah, it's that one. And you're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, Zach, obviously. We are both obsessed with this stuff. And then this time I was like, oh yeah, it's that Avengers arc. You know the one. And then he's like, no.
Nope.
I don't.
Don't know anything about those.
Not as good as Avengers versus X-Men Consequences or the Red Skull stuff in Jerry's Uncanny Avengers. I mean, it's not better than Cannonball Run or the City of Sickles from Savage Avengers or that Secret Avengers issue. I would say it is better than the X-Men versus the Avengers #4, though, which is at 430.
Okay.
Or 1 through 4.
Okay.
As I'm looking at this, Adam, if I would say that this is better than Uncanny X-Men Into the Void.
Okay.
Which I know you like, but I think you more remember it fondly than enjoy reading it.
Listen, that's a mess. It's just, you can feel free to put it above that.
I do and will feel free to put it above that. But it's not as good as 402, which is X-Men The Fall of Avalon.
Okay.
It's better than Uncanny X-Men Quarantine. It is better than Quarantine. So that's at 413. Fall of Avalon's at 404. I'm going to put it... Here's what I'm going to propose. I'm going to put it below the first Havoc and second Sentinels arc, again, involving the sun.
Involves the sun. Good point.
Involves the sun.
Yeah.
That story is better at throwing things into the sun. But above Uncanny X-Men Annual 95.
Perfect. All right. So
this is our new 405 on the list.
New 405.
It's a Zorn story.
Nice.
Folks, I love Zorn so much. And I love knowing what happened with all the mutant energy after M-Day. I think some of it came back and became Hope.
Sure. That tracks, right?
I don't remember that. I don't remember all the details. That mutant energy did a lot of stuff. It was a very busy mutant energy.
It's just floating around there.
It's just floating around. People forget that it created Onslaught 2 on Counter Earth.
Why?
Or not Counter Earth, excuse me. On the Heroes Reborn Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Liefeld came back and drew that one.
No, thank you.
Adam, I had fun.
I had a good time. I am really glad you got to play story time there and walk me through that. That was fun. So
I'm glad that you got to listen. I've been practicing my story time with my kids recently. I say recently for a while now. My son picked up from the library this week 2 Marvel books, actually.
Ooh.
He wanted to read. The first was Spider-Ham in Hollywood Mayhem, written by Steve Fox. I don't know who the artist is off the top of my head. I apologize. But it's delightful.
Sounds great.
It's for children.
Love it.
It's for children, but it's delightful. He also picked Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal. And I'm like, I mean, this is good. I think you're like 3 years too young to start reading this, but it's fine. We'll go at it. You like Kamala. The kids love Kamala, folks.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. She's dead.
I mean,
that won't last.
Listen. I'm just annoyed at how Marvel did things. I'm not buying that she's dead. I'm just like, that's crappy, guys. You did it bad. She died. And the only person who's been sad about it in comics, I just want to be clear. The only person who's been sad about it so far in comics
is Cyclops.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right. It is Cyclops. He's a little sad about it, too. I forgot about that part. The other person who's sad about it, Norman Osborn.
Oh, well. He's like purged.
He had all of his sins eaten.
Yeah.
No, the sins were eaten with a shotgun.
Amazing. What is going on in the Spider office?
Bud, comics are beautiful. If people want to find your comics, or just like you, Adam, where can they find you?
Oh, folks can always follow me on Instagram at adam.rec or on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. Don't try and find Zack. Always check out the amazing content at Comics XF. Do become a patron over at patreon.com/comicsxf. And well, Zack got a pick this week, so must be my turn this next week, right?
It's Adam's turn next week. And you know what?
Zack,
I think the images that we're looking at seem pretty neat.
This blood's for you, bud.
I don't think you're allowed to say that, but until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!